I'm Doug Jones, and I am running to be your next governor. Thank you. Thank you. And I want you to give it up one more time for the next First Lady of Alabama, my running mate, Louise. Folks, I see so many friends, at least the ones I can see out there, and I so much appreciate you coming tonight. It is no accident that we are here on December 12th, 8 years ago to the day that Alabama proved that it could defy simplified labels of red and blue. It could defy folks who would pit us against each other with this us versus them mentality. That it could defy political pundits who never gave this son of a Fairfield, Alabama steelworker and a stay-home mom, who I miss, never gave us a snowball's chance in hell of winning a statewide political campaign. But you gave me the great, great honor of serving as your United States Senator. And I'll always be. On December 12th, 8 years ago on this very day, you shocked the nation. For too long, Alabama had been seen as a state of divisions, a state that had suffered from just an array of embarrassments from office holders who really cast a shadow on the good people of Alabama and our reputation. On that unforgettable night 8 years ago, you stood up and you said something simple but powerful. We can do better. You stayed with your votes that our values, Alabama values, are more important than any political party, any personality, any prepackaged ideology. We believe in hard work. We believe in fairness. We believe in looking out for our neighbors, even when we don't always agree with those neighbors, which seems to be a lot going on these days. We believe in telling the truth, which not everybody in this country believes anymore. And even above all else, we believe that every person deserves dignity, respect, opportunity, and a voice. And folks, those are not Republican values or Democratic values. They're Alabama values. And they are worth fighting for. They are worth fighting for because, and most significantly, and I think Louise alluded to this too, on that election day in 2017, we gave the people, not just in Alabama, but across this country, something even more significant. We gave them hope. We gave people hope. Hope for less chaos. Hope for more unity. Hope for a stronger democracy. And today, 8 years later, we're rekindling that hope, that optimism, that enthusiasm, because let's face it, there is a greater urgency for hope today than there was in 2017. And that hope, it's not just what we see coming out of Washington these days, the attacks on democracy, attacks on freedom of speech and freedom of religion. You know, it's attacks on minorities in the media, attacks on the rule of law where political adversaries are targeted and political cronies are pardoned. We're seeing proven science being cast aside, placing our health at risk, okay? Policies that we're seeing coming out of the executive branch and executive orders that only benefit tech bros and billionaires while working folks struggle to make ends meet. That's what we're seeing. And we're seeing farmers losing their markets and forced to take subsidies and handouts from the government in order to survive. And the list goes on. And you know what? Tommy Tuberville continues with a full-throated endorsement of all of those things that are wrong. No, but it's just not folks like Tuberville in Washington, but right here at home. Right here at home, where our legislature is taking funds out of public schools and funding private schools that have no accountability. It's right here at home where hospitals are closing or teetering on the brink of closing, where we are open for business, which I applaud, but still Alabama has one of the lowest workforce participation rates in the entire country, where the number of children in poverty has actually gone up, where we talk a good game about mental health, but then we just warehouse folks in prison instead of getting them the help they need. It's where we've decided that we would build 2 brand new prisons at the cost of $900 million of COVID money. COVID money. Only in Alabama, only to see the cost of those prisons skyrocket. And now we've spent over $1.2 billion for building 1 prison. We still have 1 to go. And guess what? There ain't no more COVID money to pay for it, folks. So where's it going to come from? And I can tell you this too. As somebody who was a former prosecutor, 2 different stints as a prosecutor in the United States Attorney's Office here, of which I'm very, very proud. I've done my share of keeping our streets safe, of keeping our community safe. And I'm going to tell you, we are not going to turn around one of the most horrific and neglected prison systems in the country by just building $2 billion prisons. We have to do better. We have to do, and we will do better. You know, folks, I was born here in Alabama. I was raised right here. It's the only place I have ever lived is right here in Alabama. And you honored me by making you your senator. And I did my best not to be just a senator, but to be Alabama senator, to be your senator. And I worked every day to reflect our values and to never, ever embarrass you or our state on a national stage. You know, no one ever gets it all right all of the time, and there are folks that disagreed with me on some things, but they can never, ever deny that I showed up every day to try to bring people together, to work together. I worked tirelessly. My staff will tell you, they worked tirelessly too for bills that created jobs, that strengthened veterans' rights and restored veterans' benefits. We didn't just block military promotions, we actually did something for the military. We supported small businesses and increased funding for our great HBCUs in Alabama and protected civil rights. And folks, I think one of the proudest things I can talk about my time in the Senate, I think we did all that without turning Alabama into a punchline. Okay? So I'm here tonight to carry that agenda forward. In a time when life is getting harder for too many folks in Alabama, I'm going to do all I can to ease that burden and to give people of Alabama something that too many politicians in Montgomery just don't want you to have. A choice. A choice. A choice. Up and down the ticket, we're going to give folks a choice. Next November, the people of Alabama have the chance to look at Montgomery in the eye and say, we can do better. Because the truth is this, folks, and you know this, the truth is this: when politicians stay in power by keeping you out of the process, when they stack the deck, when they cling to one-party rule, they're not serving Alabama, they're just serving themselves and the special interests and lobbyists that feed off of it. You guys realize that 2/3 of Alabamans believe that their state government doesn't really care what they think. Anybody here surprised about that? No. I don't think so. Just think Think of all that we could have had in this state if the people in control of our state government in Montgomery truly cared about what the people thought and needed. Think of all we could have. First and foremost, hell, we would have had a lottery years ago. All right? I mean, good grief. That ought to be a no-brainer, but when you got folks with no brains, then So instead of watching literally millions of dollars bleeding across our borders into Georgia and Florida and even Tennessee and Mississippi, where that money could be staying home working for you. I mean, look, of all the southern states, we stick out like the proverbial sore thumb because those in power in Montgomery just refuse to allow you the opportunity for a vote on a lottery. Well, that's going to change, folks. That's going to change. And we're going to bring this in line. Something, a couple of other things that we would have if people would listen to you. We'd have early voting. Okay? We'd have early voting just like 47 other states in the country. 47 other states. So you know what? You know why they have early voting? Because unlike Alabama, they trust their citizens, okay? They trust their citizens not to let the boogeyman of voter fraud come out. They trust them. But in here, we make it harder to vote. We are going to be investing in ways to make it easier to vote, not harder. And if you think about this, think about this whole voting thing. What do you think they're scared of? Are they scared? Are they scared that the wrong people are going to vote? Probably so, because that's why they would rather suppress those votes rather than compete for those votes. And we're going to compete for every vote in Alabama. And while I'm at it, and I can really work myself up about this voting stuff, okay? So, but while I'm at it, I want to talk about we have got to stop clinging to the fear, clinging to an antiquated, rigged system of outdated, straight ticket voting. Alabama is, y'all may not know, but Alabama's only one of 5 states. Hell, even Texas did away with it recently, okay? One of 5 states that insist on straight ticket voting, which we know is nothing more than a rigged system to keep powerful people in power, even as they fail us every dang year. So, folks, if folks were listening to you, and this is really important, if folks were listening to you, we would take every possible measure to protect families so that Alabama would not have one of the highest rates of maternal mortality and infant mortality in this country. We would have taken every measure so that Alabama would not have earned an F on maternal health from the March of Dimes. Not some crazy leftist organization, the March of Dimes. Now think about it, an F in a state that proclaims itself to be so pro-life. We earn an F in caring for mothers. We can do better, folks. And let me tell you, and while I'm on the subject about mothers, I want to make something crystal clear, because I'm going to promise you, and you can take it to the bank, I will do everything possible as governor to protect IVF and contraception. I will do everything, because make no mistake, folks, the people that work to try to control Montgomery every day, that's what they're coming for next. It started with abortion, but they're coming for IVF and they're coming for contraception, but they are going to get stopped in their tracks. Not on my watch. Not on my watch. And then an issue that you have heard me talk about before, and I think is probably the most significant and one of the most critical issues for this state, for the health of this state, for the prosperity, the economic prosperity of this state. One of the things we would have done long ago if people in Montgomery had been actually listening to you is we would have expanded Medicaid. We would have, look, we would have expanded Medicaid so that our neighbors would not have the highest rate of diabetes and heart disease in the entire nation. We would have expanded Medicaid so that rural hospitals wouldn't be shutting their doors, but those communities would instead be reaping the benefits of better health and incredible economic benefits that comes when those hospitals thrive. Now, y'all know I've been talking about this a long time. Lord have mercy, it's like a broken record. I say that to folks. Our campaign in 2017, we beat the Bushes for Medicaid expansion, even though as a senator, I couldn't do that, and I knew that, but we were trying to give that promotion. We were trying to have that bully pulpit because the numbers in Alabama are staggering. Over 1 million people in this state, about 20% or more of the population qualify for Medicaid today, and over half of those are children. Medicaid is the backbone of our healthcare system, and expanding it will not just save rural hospitals. It'll provide health insurance coverage for veterans who can't qualify for all veterans benefits. It'll support healthy pregnancies and births. It'll increase cancer survival rates, and it'll give greater access to mental health services and thus have a huge impact on our criminal justice system. Look, but you know, it's pretty obvious that I am preaching to the choir here. And that's a good thing because we need your help with this. We're going to start this year to really pump this up. But I want to tell you something that you may not know or fully appreciate. And that's that Tommy Tuberville with his... Okay. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. It's fine. What you may not realize is that Tuberville with this Donald Trump first and Alabama as an afterthought mindset, his blind support of what I call the anything but beautiful bill, Tuberville has been slamming the door on Medicaid expansion. That bill creates even more roadblocks to expanding Medicaid and all of the health and economic benefits that come with it. And to make matters worse, just today or yesterday, Tuberville, who voted against extending those ACA subsidies, he is perfectly content with letting those subsidies die. Subsidies that so many of our Alabama neighbors and probably family members depend on for health insurance, who fall in that gap and have used that to buy health insurance to keep their families healthy. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about the health of Alabama families. He just cares more about what's going on the beach down in Santa Rosa. But I can promise you this, folks. I can promise you this again. When I am elected governor of Alabama, we're going to do everything in our power, everything to get health care to every Alabamian. And if that means expanding Medicaid with the stroke of the governor's pen, then I am damn sure going to do it. Thank you. Folks, I love all those signs. Those are pretty cool. Folks, I am running for governor because there has never been a better time to reconnect people to their government, to empower people to work beyond Montgomery. The foundation of change and progress is to empower people with a measure of real control to decide questions that affect their lives. That power is concentrated and has been concentrated in Montgomery for too long. It has been too great for too long, and we need, and you need a greater voice in deciding critical questions. And you can do it when we pass a ballot initiative and referendums that give you the opportunity to put things on the ballot to vote for. We'll do that by giving counties and cities in Alabama more power to solve their problems at a local level. So that our poor mayors and county commissioners don't have to make that long slog to Montgomery to beg for things that they need to do on their local level that people elected them to do, but they got to go get permission from the Alabama legislature. That's wrong, folks, and we're going to change it. Those politicians always talk about Alabama's protecting Alabama's values, but it's about damn time that they listen to the constituents and not the power brokers in Montgomery to tell them directly what that is. So folks, I'm running and I'm encouraging others to run because I want to empower the young people of Alabama to become more involved, to take ownership and build their future, to take on a system in Montgomery that must be challenged if we're ever to have any change, if we're ever to have any progress. You talk to any young person in Alabama, those three that were here, they'll tell you the same story. They want a good education. They want to work hard. They're ready to build a life. They'd love to stay in Alabama if they have the opportunities. But they're worried about what that future might hold. They're worried that leaders in Montgomery focus on imaginary threats to their way of life and their power while AI and automation grows and no one in Montgomery seems to want to lift a finger to prepare them for it. They see businesses coming to Alabama. Again, we're open for business and that's wonderful. But they worry that whether or not businesses will use those tax breaks for their investors and their CEOs and not for their workforce. That happens all the time, folks. Young men and women who have grown up and want to work and carry on the tradition of the family farm are worried that they won't be able to because of the tariffs that Tuberville supports, which are causing them to lose markets, while countries like Argentina gain those markets. And we give them $40 billion of your money to prop up their economy. If y'all ever get a chance, ask Tommy to try to explain that, okay? Somebody who sits on the agriculture committee, okay? And maybe he thinks he's sitting on Argentina's agriculture committee. I don't know. But I do know this. Just like Alabama farmers, our young people don't want a handout. They want a fair shot. They want a fair shot. So, folks, look, none of this that we're talking about here tonight, none of this is a game. It's not some damn sporting event. And I know Louise is going to give me a hard time because I've used too many profane words. But it is what it is. This is not a game. It is not a sporting event. When nearly 1 out of 5 young Alabamians can't find a job that pays the bills and forces them to leave their communities that they love, that ain't a game, folks. That's not a game. That's our future and their future on the line. When you lose access to health care and a child or parent falls ill, it's not a game. It is not winners or losers. It's not a game. It's life. When energy bills skyrocket, and families have to choose between keeping the lights on or putting food on the table, or heating the home or putting food on the table. That's no game. When AI begins shutting down plants and factories and data centers jack up your electricity bills while elected officials are too busy courting billionaires and tech bros and not protecting Alabama jobs and making life affordable, that's not a game. And when one party controls state government the way we see being controlled now, smothering innovation, smothering hope, it is absolutely not a game. Folks, let me tell you something. Despite all that you may hear about football and sports and metaphors, Alabama's not a stadium, okay? Our lives, your lives, our lives are not a scoreboard. And public service is most certainly not a game. This is about families, our communities, our state. we must not only give people the opportunity of choice, but we've also got to give them a vision. As Louise and I kind of eased into this campaign, which is giving it a lot of credit, we eased into this campaign, I've been asked, and I asked myself, what is your vision for Alabama? What's the vision for Alabama? I believe that's an essential question for any candidate to answer at any level, but especially a governor. And that answer cannot lie in a series of promises or policy statements. It's much more of a feeling. It's much more of an emotional attachment to the state where you don't just have a house, but a state where you have a home. That's what this is about. And in trying to think about that, it brought to mind a song that I really love. A song that was recorded by 4 incredibly talented female recording artists who called themselves the Highwomen. Okay? And the song is Crowded Table. Some of you know it. And the chorus and some lyrics to that song include this. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world, and while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. The door is always open. Your picture's on the wall. Everyone's a little broken, and everyone belongs. It's a powerful song about community, bringing people together despite their differences. If you haven't heard it, listen to it on your way home. It is much like our victory in 2017, an anthem about finding strength in unity and ensuring that everyone has a place at the table and a sense of belonging. That, folks, is my vision for Alabama. For too long, folks, for too long, we have been a house divided in many, many ways. And politicians have played on what was essentially a political rivalry, sports rivalries, to divide us even further. They've taken our sports rivalries and made it and turned it bad. They've taken all that and turned us on each other. For too long, they have taken that and used it to bitterly divide us in some sort of competition, not with another state, but against each other. It's us versus them, good versus evil, where the goal is to have winners and losers. But this is not a game, folks. It's not a game where your governor or other public official should be picking winners and losers the way we've seen. I see Alabama as that house with a crowded table, where there is always one more chair, so that everyone has a seat at that table, that there is always room by the fire, always a place for everyone, where the door is always open. And yeah, we're all a little bit different, but nobody gets turned away, where we belong to one another, flaws and all. Folks, 8 years ago, you sent that message to the entire country. It was that same message. You showed them that Alabama can surprise people every day, that Alabama could defy expectations, that Alabama can rise above division and say with one voice, we can do better, and we can do it better together. So the time for games is over. We're not starting the first quarter of a football game here. We are reinvigorating a journey that began on December 12th, 2017. And now, with your help, we can finish what we began. We can build the Alabama we've always deserved. We can all have a government that works not for the powerful, but a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So right now, tonight, December 12th, once again, let us make that recommitment, that commitment not to me, not to Doug Jones, but to each other. Let's make that promise real. Let's make that crowded table real. Let's make Alabama the state we all know it can be. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Alabama. I love you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Come on.
Yeah, Doug Jones back again, 2020's on the page. Alabama needs a leader, not a loudmouth on the stage. He already beat a GOP giant once in the state. If he cracked that red wall, then why can't he dominate today?